second Open Cup victory for the Houston Dynamo. They won it back in 2018 as well. Let's hear from a defeated Tata Martino postgame.
No era prudente que juegue, está claro, ni siquiera para considerarlo algunos minutos, porque corríamos riesgos. Y sí, él va a jugar seguramente antes que termine la liga, y a partir del partido de la previa del partido de hoy, iremos partido a partido definiendo la situación para ver en qué momento el departamento médico nos dice que él está en condiciones de jugar sin correr riesgo.
All right, so the Houston Dynamo end up winning the U.S. Open Cup, but Herc, I think really the story of this one is no Messi. And we knew it even before the game. There wasn't even a doubt. He wasn't on the bench. Maybe we would see him, maybe we wouldn't. And I think it, in many ways, certainly for the neutral, took the air out of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a very enticing game, right? It's a very enticing story.
It's a final with Messi, a chance to lift the trophy.
It's the storyline, right? Like, Messi comes in, saves Inter Miami, the worst team in the league, gives them a title, potentially a second title at home. The stars are out. Everything's lining up. And then this happens. It may have been a surprise to many out there. Certainly wasn't a surprise to us. We had stated a few shows ago, there's something going on. Messi's not right. He plays against Ecuador and then doesn't play against Bolivia. And they were like, well, it's the altitude. He didn't play because of the altitude. Well, didn't play the next game against Atlanta. Well, it's the turf. And they're like, look, he's on the sideline. Look, he's going to play against Toronto at home. 36 minutes, pulls himself out. Well, it's just fatigue. After 13 days, we're led to believe it's fatigue. And what's worse here is Major League Soccer and their protocol, if you will, or the way they don't mandate teams to disclose these injuries like the NFL does, for example, right? So we're here just taking the word of Tata Martino. We're here just taking the word of the medical.
Why do you think Tata Martino played it so coy? I mean, it seems that like obviously he wasn't part of the preparations. They weren't planning on using him today, and yet Martino himself came out and said, you know, I'm not going to share this information.
Yeah.
That could impact how the opponent approaches.
Exactly.
And that's fair, but I mean, like, it was very clear that Messi was never going to play.
It's clear. We're on day number 20, right?
Yeah.
And he's played 36 minutes in those 20 days. It's clearly not something that's old scar tissue. It's something that he hurt during the Ecuador game, and it was lingering, and he felt it. He tweaked it during the Toronto game. I'll defend Tata Martino here. Every single NFL coach that's obligated to disclose these injuries, and every single NFL team would rather not if they can choose. Right. You're giving the opponent a peek into the plan. You're giving the opponent insight. You're giving.
You know why they have to do it, though, right?
For gambling purposes, of course.
Especially when you're taking money.
Which most
leagues do.
Which is what Sportsbook are doing today on Inter Miami. So I asked myself, why isn't Major League Soccer obligating these teams, Inter Miami, to do this? Because all you're doing right now, the worst part is that right now it's gambling. It's people who willingly gamble their money away. But there are lots of people who are hoping Messi makes a trip to Chicago, who are hoping Messi makes a trip to their hometown.
Or they made the trip tonight to Fort Lauderdale hoping to see him.
I have friends in Los Angeles who made a trip to Fort Lauderdale hoping to see Messi. I'm hoping these things are disclosed. I'm hoping they don't think, well, we need to keep people tuned in. We need to keep the eyeballs going to keep the circus going. Messi's not a circus. So Messi's a human being. He's a player, and he should be treated as such.
If we focus on the game a little bit, I certainly felt like, especially in the first half, Inter Miami was just dead, right? Like they had no energy. The stats were something overwhelming. 18 shots to 1 in the first half. No shots on goal for Inter Miami. I wonder how much of that was the fatigue of the amount of games that they've played, maybe catching up to them as a group, but then also, and you would probably know how this would hit more, is the psychological impact of maybe they even internally, maybe some were holding out hope that Messi would play, would maybe be available, and then on top of that, you don't have Jordi Alba. I mean, to not have both of those guys, we know Inter Miami can put together a decent performance without Messi, but you take both of those guys out, and if you say that Messi not being in the game took the wind out of the stadium, like those two guys not being in the lineup, Inter Miami looked like they had nothing in that first half.
Who was a decent performance without Messi? What game was that for Inter Miami? Who was it against? Because this Houston
Toronto,
team,
right?
Because this Houston team is fourth in the West.
Oh, and Sporting Kansas City, they got a win.
Well, okay, there you go, Sporting Kansas City as well. And if we recall, it was a little bit circumstantial in that game. Anyways. Was tired legs? I can buy a little bit of the tired legs. I also saw Houston play against Sporting Kansas City, a 10-man Sporting Kansas City, and Houston looked like they were tired, and they ended up losing that game, right? Houston's a team that has given up 35 goals this season in Major League Soccer play. 25 of those goals are away from home. I think it's a combination of the inexperience for Inter Miami, those players being under the lights in a big moment without that superhero, if you will, and those tired legs. Absolutely, but you could see it. Drake Callender early on, shaky moments.
Yeah, you thought the goal was kind of on him, the first goal?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Yes. He's going to want that one back 10 more times, and 10 more times he's going to have that. He's going to have it on his post. It wasn't up high as you might have think, like, oh, he roofed.
I thought it was across him upper 90.
No, it was near post and mid-level, just a little above mid-level. Drake Callender himself will say, this one's on me. I could have done better. Drake Callender had a routine grab that he spills, and then he makes a ridiculous kick save on. It was just that type of day, that type of night for Inter Miami. They look slow. They look second best. And against the Houston Dynamo team that is intense, that believes, and is using every single piece of it's Inter Miami's at home as motivation, of course they were going to take advantage of you.
One final note on Messi, just because I think it's worth kind of painting the picture of how extreme it is, again, that he's missing time. The last time he missed a final that he was available for was the Champions League final in 2006. He was 18 years old. So if this guy is available for a final and anywhere near fit, he's going to be on the bench, Herc. To your point, I think it tells us that this is maybe much more serious than certainly anybody is hoping that's attached to Inter Miami, but even us, I think, on the outside looking in, because without him, the things around him lose a lot of their importance, and that happened to this game tonight.
Tata Martino made the correct choice. Could you imagine Josef Martinez scores that goal and there are 4 minutes left? Everybody's screaming, get Messi on, get Messi on.
Right.
You know that if he's not ready to go, you can't get him on. You can't appease the people by keeping him on the bench, because then you set yourself up for failure for that type of criticism. If he was healthy enough to take a penalty kick, he would have been on that sideline. He would have been on that bench. But he's not. And that's got to make you think, with 5 games to go, how much can he give you?
Yeah.